Jaemin? Jaemin, it's me! I came back early.
The key turned in the lock at 4:47 in the afternoon. Not slowly. Not carefully. Seo-yeon pushed the door open the way a woman pushes open the door to her own home, without thinking, without hesitating, with the full weight of someone who belongs there. Her suitcase scraped against the door frame. Her carry-on bag swung off her shoulder and hit the wall. She didn't care. She had been on a plane for 11 hours and in a Lagos hospital for 11 days before that, and all she wanted, the only thing she had been holding on to since the moment the doctor smiled and used the word remarkable, was to walk through this door, drop everything, and feel her husband's arms close around her before she had to be strong again. She called his name. Jaemin. Nothing. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. His shoes were there, the brown leather ones he wore when he wasn't working, the ones she'd bought him 2 birthdays ago from a market in Itaewon. His jacket hung on the hook, slightly crooked the way it always was because he never straightened it no matter how many times she fixed it. His camera bag sat on the floor near the console table. He was home. He was definitely home. She called again. Jaemin, it's me. I came back early. Still nothing. The bathroom light was on, she could see the thin strip of yellow under the door at the end of the hallway. He was probably in the shower. She exhaled, and for the first time in 11 days, felt something loosen in her chest. She was home. She was finally, actually home. She left her bags by the door and moved down the hallway toward the living room. She would sit down, she decided. She would take off her shoes, sink into the couch, and wait for him to come out and find her there. She imagined his face, the way his eyes went wide when something surprised him, the way surprise on Kwon Jae-min always looked a little like joy. She had been holding that image like a photograph in her mind the entire flight home. She turned the corner into the living room. And she stopped walking. Her brain registered it slowly, the way the brain sometimes refuses to process what the eyes are already seeing. She stood in the doorway of her own living room, hand still resting on the wall from when she turned the corner, and she looked at the far wall. The wall she had helped him redecorate 8 months ago. The wall she knew the way she knew the back of her own hand. It was completely covered in photographs. Not the rotating gallery he usually kept, the mismatched frames with different prints that he swapped out every few months, city shots and street portraits and abstract textures. All of that was gone. In its place was something deliberate. Something obsessive. Large prints, medium prints, smaller ones layered and pinned with the focused intensity of someone who had been building toward this for a very long time. Black and white images alongside color ones. Some framed, some raw, edges curling slightly the way photographs curl when they've been handled too many times. And every single one of them, every last photograph on that wall, was of the same person. A young woman. Seo-yeon's feet moved before her mind gave them permission. She crossed the living room slowly, the way you approach something you're not sure is real. Her heart had started doing something strange, not racing, not yet, just beating with a slightly wrong rhythm, like a metronome someone had nudged off center. She got close enough to see properly. And the air left her body. The woman in the photographs had her face. Not similar to her face. Not a resemblance. Her face. The exact curve of her jaw. The way her left eye sat fractionally lower than her right, a thing so subtle that only Seo-yeon's mother had ever noticed it and commented on it, once, when Seo-yeon was 12 years old. The small, faint arc of a scar at the corner of her collarbone, a ghost of an injury from a fall she had taken in Lagos when she was 7, running barefoot on wet concrete in her grandmother's compound. Seo-yeon's hand went to her own collarbone. Her fingers found the scar. She looked at the photograph directly in front of her. Looked at the collarbone of the woman in the image. The same scar. Same placement. Same faint, barely visible curve of old, healed skin. Her legs felt strange. She reached out and steadied herself against the wall. The woman in the photographs was younger than her, 22, maybe 23, and there was something in her expression across the different images that Seo-yeon could not stop looking at. In some photos she was laughing, the kind of laugh that doesn't know it's being watched. In others she was still, looking at something off camera with a focus that made her seem older than her face suggested. In one photograph she was standing in front of the Lagos lagoon at golden hour, her eyes closed and her hands open at her sides, like she was giving something back to the water. Seo-yeon recognized that lagoon. She had stood on that same bank as a child. If you are watching this right now and your mouth is already open, good. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because this story is only getting deeper from here. Don't let YouTube keep you from episode 2 when it drops. She was still staring at the lagoon photograph when her eyes dropped to the bottom of the frame. There, pinned to the wall directly below it, was a small white card. Handwritten. Jaemin's handwriting, she knew it the way she knew his shoes and his jacket and the crooked angle at which he hung things. 2 words on the card. Seo-yeon. Her name. Her name. She said it out loud without meaning to. What is this? Her voice came out wrong, too thin, too small for the size of the question. She said it again, louder this time, and the word bounced off the walls of the apartment and came back to her with nothing attached to it. No answer. No explanation. Just the photograph staring back at her from every angle, a woman with her own face arranged across the wall like evidence in a case Seo-yeon hadn't known she was part of. The bathroom door opened. She heard it before she turned, the soft click of the handle, the hinge that needed oiling and that she had asked Jae-min to fix 3 times, the sound of him stepping out into the hallway. She turned around slowly. He was standing at the far end of the living room. He had clearly just stepped out of the shower, his hair was damp, his shirt not quite fully tucked, his feet bare on the wooden floor. He was looking at her with an expression she had never seen on his face in 4 years of marriage. Not guilt. Not the panicked, caught-out look of a man who has been discovered doing something wrong. Not even surprise, though she could see he hadn't expected her here. She could see that in the slight stillness that had come over his body when he first saw her, like an animal that had heard a sound it wasn't prepared for. What was on his face was older than guilt. Heavier. It was the face of a man who had been carrying a weight for so long that the muscles had formed around it, and now someone had walked into the room and pointed at what he was carrying, and he didn't know whether to put it down or hold on tighter. It was grief. And that terrified her more than anything else could have. Jae-min. Her voice was steady. She was proud of it for being steady. Who is she? He didn't answer immediately. He looked at her, then at the wall, then back at her. Something passed across his face, a decision being made. She could almost see it happening. You weren't supposed to be home until Friday, he said. My mother recovered. I got an earlier flight. She heard herself speaking like someone describing events that had happened to another person. Jae-min. Who is she? Why does she look like me? Why is her name? She stopped. Swallowed. Why is my name on that card? He crossed the room toward her and she stepped back. Not dramatically, just 1 step. But he noticed it, and something in his face cracked open. Seo-yeon. Don't. She held up her hand. Don't say my name like that right now. Just answer the question. He looked at the wall. He stood there looking at it for a long moment, and the silence between them was so loaded that she could feel it pressing against her eardrums. I should have told you, he said finally. I tried to. 3 times. I started and I didn't know how. Told me what? He turned to look at her. How much do you know about your parents' time in Lagos in 1993? The question landed so strangely that for a moment she thought she had misheard it. What? 1993, your mother and father. Lagos. Do you know what happened that year? She stared at him. Jae-min, what does 1993 have to do with a wall full of photographs of a woman who has my face and my scar and my... Everything, he said quietly. It has everything to do with it. The room felt smaller suddenly. She sat down on the edge of the couch, not because she chose to, but because her legs made the decision without consulting her. She pressed her palms flat against her thighs and looked at her husband standing in front of a wall of photographs of a woman who was not her, and she said the only thing she could think to say. Start talking. He sat down in the chair across from her. He did not reach for her hand. She noticed that the deliberate distance of it, like he understood that she needed to hear this without being touched, without comfort blurring the edges of whatever was coming. Her name was Seo-yeon, he said. I know that sounds. It sounds insane. I know. It sounds like you are sitting in our living room telling me that the woman on our wall has the same name as me. She does. The words hit her like something physical. She pressed her palms harder against her thighs. I met her in Lagos, he continued. 7 years ago. I was there for a photography residency, 6 months documenting the waterfront communities. She was 22. She was a student at the University of Lagos, studying literature. He stopped. She was extraordinary. She was the kind of person who made every room she walked into feel like it had been waiting for her. Seo-yeon said nothing. She was watching his face with the precision of a woman recalibrating everything she thought she knew. We were together for 4 months, he said. And then she disappeared. Disappeared. She was there one day and gone the next. No message. No explanation. Her phone was disconnected. Her roommate said she'd packed a bag and left in the middle of the night. No one knew where she went. I looked for her for 8 months. He paused. I looked for her for 8 months and found nothing. And then you came back to Seoul, Seo-yeon said. Her voice was very quiet. And 2 years later you met me. He met her eyes. And I had her face, she said. You had everything, he said. Not just her face. The way you hold your head when you're thinking. The way you go completely still when something surprises you instead of flinching. The way he stopped himself. I thought I was going mad. When I first saw you at the exhibition, I thought I was seeing things. She stood up. She walked to the wall. She stood in front of the photograph at the center, the anchor of the whole installation, the one where the woman was looking directly into the camera with her heart fully exposed, and she looked at it for a very long time. You married me, she said, still facing the wall, knowing I looked exactly like a woman you had loved and lost. Yes. If you are still with me right now, and I know you are, because this story has its hand around your throat, drop a comment below and tell me, do you think Jae-minute was chasing a ghost? Or did he know something more? Like this video so the algorithm keeps this story in front of people who need to see it. Did you love me? She asked. Or did you love her through me? The silence that followed was the longest of her life. I love you, Jae-minute said. I need you to understand that first. What I felt for you, what I feel for you, is not a copy of something else. It is its own thing. It grew in its own way. You are not a replacement, Seo-yeon. You are not a substitute. She turned around. Her face was very still. Then why, she said, keeping her voice measured and low, is there a wall in my living room covered in photographs of her? Why did you build it while I was gone? Why did it go up the moment I left for Lagos? He opened his mouth. Closed it. Jae-minute. Why now? He reached into the back pocket of his jeans and pulled out something she hadn't expected. A letter. A single folded sheet of paper, worn soft at the creases the way paper gets when it has been opened and refolded many times. He held it out. She crossed the room and took it from him. Unfolded it. The handwriting was not his. It was hers. Or close enough to hers that her hand started shaking before she'd read a single word. The loops of the letters, the way the pen pressed harder at the beginning of sentences and lighter at the end. If someone had put this handwriting in front of her without context, she would have said yes, immediately, without question. That's mine. That's my handwriting. But she had not written this letter. She had never written this letter. She looked up at Jae-minute. When did you get this? 2 weeks ago, he said. 3 days after you left for Lagos. She looked back down at the letter and began to read. It was short. 4 paragraphs. The writer identified herself by name, Seo-yeon, and apologized for the years of silence. She said she had known about Jae-minite's marriage for some time and had stayed away deliberately because she had not wanted to be a disruption. She said something had changed. She said she had found out something that she could not keep to herself any longer, something that involved not just Jae-minute but his wife. Something about who his wife really was. Something that had started in a hospital in Lagos in 1993. The letter ended with an address. A neighborhood in Lagos. And a single line beneath it. I think she deserves to know who she is. Seo-yeon read the last line 3 times. Then she looked up. Her voice, when it came out, was not steady anymore. Who I am, she said. What does that mean? I know who I am. I thought you did too, Jae-minute said. And then the letter came, and I started thinking about things I had dismissed before. Things that never quite added up but that I pushed to the back of my mind because I didn't want to pull that thread. What things? The first night I met you, he said, I asked you about your childhood in Lagos. You told me your parents left in 1993 when you were a baby. You said your mother had a difficult experience at the hospital there. You didn't know the details, she never talked about it. You said there was a period of your parents' early life that felt closed off to you, like a room in a house where the door was always shut. Seo-yun was very still. I thought about that closed room for 7 years, he said. And then the letter arrived. And I thought about it again. And I put up the wall because I needed to look at her and look at you and try to understand whether what I was thinking was possible or whether I was losing my mind. What were you thinking? She whispered. He looked at her. Then at the wall. Then at her again. She didn't disappear because she wanted to, he said. I don't believe that anymore. Something happened. Something was done. And whatever it was, it started before either of you were old enough to know anything about it. He paused. You have her face, Seo-yun. You have her scar. You have her handwriting. You were born in Lagos in 1993 and so was she. Your parents left Lagos in 1993 and no one has ever fully explained to you why. The room was completely silent. I'm not saying it's true, he said carefully. I am saying I think you need to go back to Lagos. Not for your mother's health this time. For yours. She turned and looked at the wall again. The woman with her face. The woman with her name. The woman with her scar and her handwriting and her eyes and the particular tilt of her head that Jae-minute had just described as Seo-yun's own. She stared at the photograph at the center, the one where the woman was looking into the camera with her whole heart open, and she understood suddenly that the expression she had been unable to name since she walked into this room, the expression she had no word for, was not love. It was recognition. The woman in the photograph was looking at the camera the way you look at a mirror. She knows, Seo-yun said softly. Not a question. The letter says she knows something. What she knows, I don't. Jae-minute stood up and moved to stand beside her. He did not touch her. He stood close enough that she could feel the warmth of him, and he looked at the wall with her. But she reached out. She said you deserve to know who you are. And I think, whatever happens between you and me after tonight, I think she is right. Seo-yun thought about her mother in a hospital bed in Lagos, looking small against white pillows. She thought about the way her mother had always gone quiet at certain questions. The way her father changed the subject when anyone mentioned the early years. She thought about the closed room. The shut door. The part of her history that had always felt like a held breath. She thought about a baby born in Lagos in 1993. She thought about 1. And then she thought about 2. She reached out and touched the photograph. The woman's face under her fingertips. Her own face. The scar she could feel on her own collarbone without looking. What was her last name? She asked. Jae-minute was quiet for a moment. Park, he said. Seo-yun closed her eyes. Park. Her father's surname. The surname she had carried her entire life. Park Seo-yun, daughter of Park Hyun-soo and Adiz Okonkwo, born in Lagos in 1993, raised between Seoul and Nigeria, a woman who had spent her whole life living between two worlds and never once questioned whether there might have been a third. A third world. A third person. A mirror she had never been shown. She opened her eyes and looked at the wall one final time. Then she walked to the console table by the door, picked up her phone, and opened her contacts. She called her mother. It rang 4 times. 5. 6. Her mother picked up on the 7th ring, voice thick with sleep. It was late in Lagos. Seo-yun had forgotten. Seo-yun? What's wrong? Are you home safe? She looked at the wall from across the room. Mama, she said. I need you to tell me something. And I need you to tell me the truth this time. A pause. Long. The kind of pause that answers the question before the question is asked. What do you want to know? Her mother said finally. 1993, Seo-yun said. The hospital in Lagos. What happened to the other baby? The silence on the other end of the line was the longest she had ever heard. And in that silence, Seo-yeon Park, structural engineer, daughter, wife, a woman who had spent her career calculating what walls could hold, felt the weight of 31 years of architecture begin, very quietly, to come apart. Episode 2 is coming. And I promise you, what happens in that Lagos hospital in 1993 will change everything you think you know about this story. Subscribe right now, hit the bell, and drop your theories in the comments below. I am reading every single one. This Is Her Name Was Also Mine. And we are just getting started.